let's go about songwriting. Of course, Ozzy Osbourne. You get the Ozzy gig, and what it was '86 Ultimate Sin, where you co-wrote the hit single "Shot in the Dark." How did that song? How did you come upon
It's
writing
something that I
that?
wrote on actually quite a long time before I wrote it. It's something that I wrote on actually quite a long time before I wrote it on piano. As a piano written song, and I wrote it at home, wrote music, wrote some lyrics, and I had a band at the time. I presented it to them. They didn't really want any outside songs coming in, and so they said, "Well, you know, they like this song. We're going to rewrite the lyrics on it." And I said, "Okay." And they rewrote the lyrics, and we didn't do anything with it, and the band fell apart, and I left. And then afterwards, I took my original song and I played it to various different, three other people, including Jimmy, and said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And it wasn't right, it wasn't right.
Mhm.
Then presented to Ozzy. I had three songs that I presented to Ozzy. We were looking for another song. Um, you know, the album had been written, the Ultimate Sin had been written by the time I got into the band. And so there we were with our producer, and now there was some last 11th hour problem that they just didn't hear the obvious single, and so we need another song. And so they started contemplating all kinds of different songs, some covers, various different things, even Born to Be Wild.
Get your motor running.
Wow, I can't picture that. Wow.
No, it wasn't a great idea. But, you know, everyone started throwing ideas out. And then finally they turned around to Randy and to me, Castillo and me, and said, "You guys have any songs?" And I said, "Well, you know, I've got three songs here that I could play you." And so I played. That was one of the ones that I played. And they said, "Oh, this sounds great. Let's work on it."
Just a shot in the dark.
And so we worked on it. Ozzy did bring in a few little signature parts into the song, into the melodies in there and stuff. And we, you know, just worked it up. I had to, you know, tweak a few lyrics here and there to fit his new phrasing, and it became what it was.
It became what it was, a huge hit. Take me back to the original "Shot in the Dark." What was the song about, if you want to tell us, like, originally when you were writing it?
The song was originally, I mean, you know, I was going to tell you earlier about how you write about personal experiences. So this was not a song about personal experiences. This was a song that I saw when there was a movie out years ago called 3 Days of the Condor.
I'll need your help.
Have I ever denied you anything?
Do you believe the condor is really an endangered species?
Don't expect too many mistakes from this man.
Do you remember that?
Yes. Hmm.
So it was a creepy movie. I mean, it was a powerful movie, and it was basically the power that you know, that a government could have over anybody, and the whole thing was really quite scary. You know, we grew up in England after the Cold War, and actually within the Cold War, I was born in that period, and we had just, you know, seen some of the devastation that could occur when some of these governments seem to have so much power that all of this stuff could just happen. They could make things happen, make people disappear, and that's kind of what that was about. And I sort of was writing a story about that song, about that film. So it wasn't really a personal experience as such, but the extent of my personal experience with it was terrifying. I mean, it was a scary thing, and that's what it was. And then, you know, I made a few tweaks to it afterwards. It was quite poignant because as I was finishing up some manipulating some words around Ozzy's new phrasing, I remember it was I was at the house we had a band house in Hayes Mews in London, and the guys were watching TV, and all of a sudden I looked over and there was Fritzi Zahner was playing, and I thought,
Take it easy. What the hell, mate?
Nobody took it slower than me, Charlie. 4 years. Answer the question. You want to do it?
playing, and I thought, this was almost a a very strange, you know, coincidence, because Prince's Honor was sort of a comedic, you know, version of 3 Days of the Condor, you know. And I remember looking at that, going, "That's how funny is that? Maybe this is a sign," you know.
Yeah. Some
But
kind of sign.
but I was going to give you a don't want to get off track, but I was going to give you an example. You know, when you're writing a personal song, I've used this example before with people. If you write a song about, you know, I was in love with this girl and then she left me and broke my heart, and you write, I was in love with a girl, she left me and broke my heart. And people hear the song and they say, oh, it's too bad, you know, it's a nice song. You know, they don't really like regret it. But you could change one word.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever been in love with someone who left you and broke your heart? Now it's everybody's ballad. Now it's everybody's song. That was my song. That was a song I identified with it. You've now given it an international, a completely global perspective, and that's what I'm saying. That's what I mean when I say that you kind of have to strip yourself out of the song and put the feeling into the song where it can be accessible or relatable by other people. Now you've got a song that stands the chance of being, you know, adopted as a hit. Why? Because people relate to it.
Yeah.
Just change one word.
That's it. And it's the connection. Everybody wants to feel the connection.
Everyone wants the connection. Absolutely.
That's what they want.
Well, yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, when I'm bummed out, I want to hear something that either I sympathize with or that makes me feel better, but I connect with.
Yeah, I know it very well. Hey, I connected with it, and my audience knows me well. Don't Give Up on Us, Baby by David Soul. I had a connection with that song at one time. I had a connection. But it's great. I love hearing this about Shot in the Dark, how it started, because I didn't know the movie was inspired it, you know? And then 2 movies, how it connected back to this movie, and just like it's meant to be.
Yeah, that was the inspiration for the lyrics. The inspiration for the music was something you would never guess in a million years. It was actually, believe it or not, some of the music I was really experimenting with, and changes I was experimenting with, that I was hearing on Al Jarreau albums.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So again, we talked about music coming from different places. You know, it was I was really into a couple of Al Jarreau albums. I was always into a lot of jazz fusion stuff as well, because jazz fusion had great bass players, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I loved playing 8s and 4s, and then after you got bored of that, there must be something else to do. And then, oh, the jazz fusion albums, well, those guys are doing crazy shit. So I want to learn to do some of that, even though I may never end up playing it.
Yeah.
So I was listening to these, and then I'd hear these different chord progressions that they were using in this kind of music. And it was like, okay, so I started playing those things on the piano. That's why the song's written in B flat. It's kind of a piano key. It's not a guitar key.
Was the music, was it slow? Was it more of a slower vibe since it was on the piano? It was the tempo of it?
No, not really. Yeah, it was slowed down. But the original had been kind of up tempo, you know.
But you didn't give up on it. You knew it was going to be a hit, and you kept pushing it out there. Yeah, I got this song, you know.
No, just like you know, there's a whole bunch of songs that I have, and you'd always like say, hey, you know, here's a song, here's a song, here's a song. We just did a song on the new Last in Line album that comes out in March, where I've said, oh, you know, I wrote this thing back in the 80s, and I showed it to the guys, and I was like, nah, you know, I don't like that. Oh no, that's kind of cool. Really? Yeah, let's do it. I was like, oh, all right. So we did it. We recorded it, and they like it. It still sounds odd to me, you know, but I think songs, you know, they never go away. You have an idea.
No.
You know.
No, a good song.
I was very grateful to Ozzy because, you know, for his part of the song, they created a video, they marketed it, they promoted it. We did a tour for it. We did, you know, that makes it a hit too. You know, a good song just doesn't become a hit on its own. It needs people behind it to create it, to turn it into a hit as well. So I was very grateful.
It was a big time for Ozzy, The Ultimate Sin. It was a huge tour, and the band. Who was in the band? Was Randy? Randy
Castillo, Jakey Lee, myself, and Ozzy, and John Sinclair was playing keyboards, but he was off stage. He didn't want to be on stage. Ozzy was like, "Do you want to be on stage?" No, fuck that. just
didn't want to
changed.
be on. He just wanted to be easy behind the curtain, and that's
Got my drink over here and the cigarettes over here. I just do my thing, you know.
That's funny. How about the tour? Who did you guys tour with? Who supported the tour with you guys?
We started off in Britain with Rat opening up for us. And then when we came to America, it was Metallica. And then we switched halfway through. We had Blue Oyster Cult open for us for a little while.
Wow.
And then we had Queensryche. And
Wow.
sadly, the reason that we switched is because of Cliff Burton's untimely passing. He passed during that tour.
Actually, it's 10 years ago, in about 4 weeks.
You guys were in the bus fighting over who gets to sit in the front of the bus? Do I have that right?
Yeah, ish. It was
This is one of those.
Kirk,
Yeah.
Him and Kirk were drawing straws about who was going to sleep in a specific bunk, and Cliff pulled the longest straw and went in that bunk. And when the bus,
I mean, that was supposed to be the good bunk.
yeah, that was supposed to be the good bunk.
Wow.
And we were driving from Stockholm to Copenhagen, and we were all asleep in the bus, and all of a sudden we hit a patch of ice, and the whole bus just started flipping over. Everybody else walked out, and it's just like, where's Cliff? Oh, he's probably still in there sleeping. That was the kind of guy he was. He could sleep through anything.
Right.
And he's still in there sleeping. So we all went to the hospital and got treated for, broken toes and all this type of stuff. And the guy comes in and says, your bass player's dead.
Oh, man.
Oh, I didn't know that. Really?
Yeah, we had some time off. I think Ozzy lost his voice or something. We had to cancel some shows, and he was advised to give his voice a rest. So he said, well, we're going to cancel some shows. And during that time, Metallica, I think, went to Europe to do some gigs. And they had that terrible bus accident at that time.
Wow, I remember that. Wow, so they were on the Ozzy tour, took the break, went to Europe, and that's when that happened, that tragic accident. I remember when that happened.
Yeah.
Terrible. Awful.
It was awful. It was, two completely unrelated incidents. Ozzy losing his voice, and look what happens. You
Awful.
start to wonder about how every little choice in life has implications down the road. And something seemingly as innocent as him losing his voice. If he hadn't have lost his voice, I was thinking to myself, we would have carried on doing the shows. We would have done. Maybe Cliff would be around today.
Yeah, wild. That's a wild thought, man. It's crazy how things just for some reason they work out like this. That's awful. Awful. I remember that tour. Wow.
Yeah.
Man, that's a tough one. That was a tough one. Ozzy and the band Jakey Lee. Was that the last that Jakey Lee played with Ozzy before Zakk Wylde entered the band?
Yeah, it was. At the end of the tour, we went to start working on the next record, and it's not my business to tell somebody's story because I don't know. But he just kind of lost interest. He sort of stopped showing up, and I think he had other issues that he was trying to resolve with them. Maybe similar to my own situation, where at the end I was unable to cut the deal I felt I was going to be happy with moving forward. But for whatever reason, he just lost interest, and he was just not showing up anymore. And eventually they stepped in and they said, well, we're going to find somebody else. And we were mortified, to put it bluntly. Jake was a very, very powerful personality in that band. I mean, he was a terrific guitar player, and he had an incredible look, and he had an incredible charisma. And the first thing I remember saying amongst ourselves, we were sitting there talking, I said, how the hell are we going to fill his shoes? The chairman said, oh, don't worry, you'll find someone. And I said, wow, that's going to be tough. And it was tough. It took months.
It's funny because Ozzy was always known to have these amazing guitar players.
Yeah.
From the Randy, the Jakey Lee, the Bark. I saw Ozzy Bark at the Moon tour with Jake. I believe it was Jake and Motley Crue opening up. I remember that. I was a kid. Right. I was working. I was like 16, 17. It was like one of the concerts I went with my buddies, and I remember seeing that show and I was blown away. And that's when Ozzy was wild at that time, and the Crew was wild. For the people now who watch, they could live it through the dirt, but it was just a wild era. It was a rock and roll era, and what a great intro for Bark at the Moon.
There was, I think, the idea that anybody who opened for Ozzy was a clear lift up and elevation, to an onwards and upwards career. wasn't it?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah, it was because he would showcase these guitar players, like,
showcase. Yeah,
and they were. It's like you, as a kid, looking through the rock and roll magazines, of Circus, Hit Parade, or whatever you're reading, you'd see Ozzy's new guitar. Besides the famous the Bat stories and all this, but then Randy, Jakey Lee, you'd hear all the Zakk coming in there. And
yeah,
were you there for the audition for Zakk then?
yeah. It was
So you,
Randy Castillo and myself. I mean, Ozzy had just released the Randy Rhoads tribute album, so they were off going around the country doing promo for that, and they left Randy Castillo and myself back in LA to find a guitar player, and I think we went through 400 guitar players. I mean, anybody who could pick up a guitar was sending tapes in and what have you. And it was an era which I'm sure you remember when the Musicians Institute started with guitar, the Guitar Institute.
that's right.
ADIKA, and so all of a sudden there was this newfound excitement about playing what Vivian Campbell calls pointy guitars. You remember, as opposed to like
The Doug Marks, like Doug Marks. Remember him? Method Madness or something.
Right.
The guy with the blonde hair with the pointy Jackson looking.
Yeah, the Jacksons, there were Charvels, there were Kramers, but they were all pointy. Vivian calls them pointy guitars.
Hockey sticks. They look like hockey sticks.
So, but the thing was, they were all. I remember the auditions. We went through a process where we'd have to kind of filter it down. So we'd go through the tapes, we'd look through the pictures, and then we'd go filter it down, and we'd go through. And eventually we end up with a list of people who would come in and play. And some of these guys were coming in, and there was like one or two roadies would come in, and then they would come in with flight cases and open flight cases, and there was all this effects equipment in there. There were SPX 90s, and there was Rev 7s, and there was
Arena Rock.
It was just like bringing in a studio rack, okay? And then the amps, and then everything else, and set everything else. And these guys would come in and play 2 songs, and the first song you'd be like, this ain't gonna work. And they all had exactly the same sound. That was the thing that I remember thinking, God, is somebody gonna come through that door that doesn't sound like the GIT signature sound? And you know the sound. It's super compressed, and it doesn't have any dynamics, and it just sounds like... If you were in the studio, you'd grab that fader, over here, it's all you could hear. And over here, you couldn't hear any guitar. It was one of those sounds.
Yeah.
Which is all encompassing. And it was just, it was the sign of the times, I think. That was the sound that was being promoted at that time. And then, Zakk comes in.
I mean, thank God. I don't think the world could handle 2. I mean, it definitely broke the mold from him. He came along with me, and he was a Randy Rhoads freak.
And there's this guy who it's really funny. I found the note on my notepad. I think I put it on the internet. I had to pick up this guy Zakk from the airport.
Oh, you picked him up?
I picked him up, yeah. And it was Mark Weiss, the photographer.
Yes.
Mark, because everybody we knew said, "Hey, I know a guitar player. I know a guitar player. You should check this guy out." Mark said, "There's this guy who I've seen who you should give him a spin." Sent the information, so Sharon said, "Let's fly him in." So she flew him in. I went to pick him up, and he comes in with an extremely unfashionable Les Paul. I mean, I don't know if you speak to any guitar aficionados or whatever, but at that time in the late 80s, you couldn't sell Les Pauls for firewood.
I remember.
Couldn't give them away.
They were not cool. They were not cool at all. Back then, they were not happening. It was all the Ibanez, the Charvels, all that stuff. Well, everything else with Jackson, but not a Les Paul.
Yeah. You couldn't even use it to, kill flies.
Yeah.
It was like a really looked down on guitar. So he comes in with this unfashionable Les Paul and turns around and says, obviously I don't have an amp. Do you have an amp? And there's this solitary, sorry looking Marshall in the corner. It wasn't like a Randall. It wasn't like a high-tech whatever amps that everyone was using. It was just a plain old Marshall with a head. And we said, we got that. And he plugs the guitar into that, turns it up, and all of a sudden you could feel the air move in the studio. We hadn't had that sound. And there was just no disputing it. Zakk was incredible. All of a sudden it sounded like a band. The three of us were playing. Randy was a tremendous drummer. He was incredible, very, very powerful and very loud and raucous. And I like to think that I was keeping up with him as well. And so between the three of us, there was a sound that we hadn't experienced in all our efforts in trying to find a new guitar player. And it took, honestly, about 4 or 5 months. It was about 4 months. I think it was about July. Yeah, about 4 or 5 months before we found him. And then Ozzy and Sharon came down for our final play to see him, and came in. And I think they took one look at him and went, that's it. And it turned out to be the right decision. He was definitely the guy.
So in the room when you're jamming with Zakk, who's in the room with you guys besides the band? Anybody else there? Just you guys?
Just Randy, myself, a couple of our techs.
What studio were you guys at? Do you remember where you were at? The rehearsal?
Yeah, we were at the Alley. It doesn't exist anymore. Do you remember the Alley? It had that stockade around it.
Yes. Yes.
Behind Chandler. And then there was one that was on, it was also on Chandler, but it was a private studio. And I think it was used by Bonnie Raitt and people like that, but it was a private part of the Alley, but you couldn't just book, you block booked it. And we lived in that room for about 6-7 months.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's
gone. It's gone now. So right when he walks in and plays, so it's just the band. There's no Sharon, no nobody there, just Randy and you.
No, we were going through the audition process, and then we got it down to a short list.
And then
we got down to about 5 or 6 people on that short list. And I know you're going to ask me who was on it, but I can't. I mean, I can barely remember.
You don't remember?
No.
Is there one? Did anybody ever come to you? How come you didn't pick me?
Joe Holmes was one of the guys. He ended up as a guitar player for Ozzy subsequently.
With Brian Tichy in the band later on.
Correct.
That's right.
So Joe was one guy. You know who was in there? It was Amir Dirac was in there.
From Rough Cut. Yeah. Orgy, yes.
We liked Amir a lot. I mean, he was a guy who we got on with really well.
He had the look back then too. He looked great. I remember the look.
Yeah, but I think it was just it's nothing to do with those guys. It was more to do with Zakk. I mean, there was just no.
So so Zakk just came in there, skinny kid from Jersey, comes in there just with no bells and whistles, just comes in with heart and soul. It's like a Rocky movie almost.
He was almost like really showy. I mean, he was playing around, he was smiling, he was playing in front, he was putting the guitar behind his back and playing it. I mean, he was just having fun with it.
He just had good energy. You could feel the vibe.
He had a great energy. He had totally.
And would you remember the first tune? What you guys played, or you don't? That's too.
Oh, that's obscure. I think we played 3 songs with each person. I think one of them was Crazy Train. One of them was what else did we play? I'd have to look back in my notes. I'm writing a book at the moment. It's probably.
Are you writing a book?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it's finished, but I'm just editing it right now.
You got to. These stories are so cool, man. And just, because for me, I'm like a fly on the wall. I want to be like, what was he wearing? Was he wearing the bell bottoms? What was his vibe? Did he come in there with the hair tees, or just came in there just raw and just full of just?
No, he came in. I mean, he had long, straight hair. He looked very different. Obviously, no beard. I mean, I've got pictures of him, back then, and it looks like a completely different person.
Yeah,
he was quite young, and he was. I mean, he just played the shit out of the stuff, and he had fun playing it. We had some interesting experiences. I mean, one of the guys I remember, Randy and I had a system, whereas we'd be able to sort of cut the audition short if we just plain out knew that it just wasn't going the right direction. So we didn't want to have to go through the whole process. So my thing was that I would drop a pick. I would go, drop the pick. And Randy's was, he would drop a stick. And Randy never dropped a stick. So it was like, this was our secret thing. And we had one guy come in, and this guy plugged in. We started, I don't know what it was, maybe Crazy Train. And all of a sudden the guy goes charging across the room, does pirouettes. runs the other way, does pirouettes again. He's like running. I'm like this. I'm just watching this whole show and just kind of in disbelief. And all of a sudden it's like crack. And I'm like, what the? And I look down, there's a drumstick. And I look to Randy, he goes, oh, sorry, I dropped a stick.
Yeah.
He's thrown it at me because he couldn't get my attention.
Yeah.
So we had some funny stories like that. I mean, we were very grateful for everybody who came in and took the trouble to come in. But
Wait.
too much about that. But they say that when somebody walks in the door, they don't even have to open their mouth.
They don't have to open. You know the vibe right there. What an experience, man. I mean, now look at Zakk. He created such a brand.
Unbelievable.
It's fantastic. And now he's out there. You keep in touch with Zakk? Do you guys?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I stay in touch with him. I hear from him. You know, we'll text with each other. We would do a lot of those fantasy camps together, and we would always have a lot of fun on them.
Yeah.
You know, he was like you said, he created an incredible brand.
He really did.
Made it work. There was no doubt that he was the right guy.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just too bad that I never really got to do too much more with Zakk. From my own personal perspective, I would have loved to have done more.
Yeah.
But we found him. Randy and I went off. We took a break, a well-deserved break after that whole process, and we were going to hook back up again to start work in earnest on the album again, pick up work, and we were keen to get back to work. You know, we had gone through all of the stuff. We weren't working. I mean, we weren't being paid. So all of this time, we wanted to get back out and start working again. But then, and then it got to the point where I'd been writing a lot of material for the new record, and then I had to cut a deal. And I was, like I said to you earlier, I was unable to cut the deal that I wanted, and not for want of trying. We went back and forth, and to be honest, it was a very civil process. I went, talking with Sharon, and they wanted a certain thing, and I wanted a certain thing. And at a certain point, I had to be honest with myself and say, well, this is the deal. And I think Sharon had said it to me best one time before. She said, look, anyone is playing with Ozzy, this is Ozzy's band. They're playing with Ozzy to make him look as good as possible. And if somebody's not happy with the arrangement, there's a whole line of people out there who would gladly like this opportunity. And I think that, it got to a point where I just said, maybe it was time for me to, go my own way. I've done a lot in the band so far. Done a fantastic tour, great album, had the success of Shot in the Dark, of course, and it's put me on the map. And now maybe it's time for me to leave the nest.
Yeah.
And go find something of my own. It took some balls to do it.
I'm sure it did. It's you also it's like laying in this comfortable bed. It feels good, and now I'm gonna take off the blanket and step out into the cold air again. Now, and it touches your skin.
Yeah, I'd left one of the biggest bands in the world, and I mean, obviously, it was facilitated by the fact that I was stepping right into Billy's band. I knew that straight away. We'd already spoken about it, and that was, I'm sure, one of the factors that influenced my decision or my courage to leave. I went and moved on, and the rest is history.
One more clip of drama. I'm going to throw some names at you. The first thing that comes to your mind when you hear these names, really quick, and I'm going to let you go. You ready, Phil?
Okay.
Okay. Billy Idol.
Sound.
Ronnie James Dio.
Gentleman.
Vince Neil.
Showman.
Ozzy Osbourne.
Ultimate showman.
Sharon Osbourne.
Tough.
There you go. All right, everybody. You know what? It was wonderful. We recapped on everybody here, and thanks for being here, Phil. Thank you all for watching, and make sure, if it's your first time here, hit that thumbs up, subscribe, and make sure you hit the bell to be notified when we're coming on in your neck of the woods. This is Phil Soussan, and he is my friend, ultimate bass player. And give him love. Links for Phil would be down below in the descriptions down below. You could click in that, all that good stuff. Follow his IG and check out his bass techniques. And he'll ask you, pick of fingers, huh? Right?
Fingers or a pick?
Fingers or pick? I got help. You help me out a
No
little
picks
bit
any
here.
around here, otherwise I'd pick a pick up. But see, I got a guitar here. I don't have any picks, but there you go.
There you go. All right. You want to see this episode unedited, uncut, and much, much more? Join our VIP all access backstage pass. It supports the channel and it gives you more entertainment. And also, we're giving away vinyl records. All that and much, much more in Patreon. But until then, everybody, thank you for watching. Give us a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe and share this with somebody who loves rock and roll as much as we do. Until then, it's only rock and roll and we like it. And remember, who loves you, baby? We do. Now get out of here, you crazy kids.